now I'm going to introduce, in fact, I've probably got the easiest of all the introductions to all the speakers, because I'm introducing the star of the show, and I've been told to say that because he's my boss. All Saravana seems to need to do is add the numbers 360 to end of any word, and it seems to become successful. So if Microsoft ever want to change the name to Microsoft 360, I'm sure we can make it an even bigger success. So I'm going to present to you the second best pool player in BizTalk360. The founder, the brains and the driving force behind BizTalk360, Service Bus 360, Atomic Scope that seems to have missed the 360, and Document 360. Saravana Kumar.
Thanks, Duncan. By the way, I didn't script what Duncan was talking, so it's all his. Okay, I got 40 minutes now, so basically I split it into two different parts. The first 20 minutes I will concentrate on BizTalk360, and the second part we will discuss about the Service Bus 360. Even though, like I'm guessing, so how many of you are BizTalk customers here? Wow, okay, BizTalk360 customers? Great. Okay, so at the face of the product might look similar, and like it resembles the same. But what we have done in the last few months or last year is we have gone a bit deeper into the product. Like every single feature got more additions, and it all coming from customer feedback. For example, to give you just an example, like we have a BAM portal in BizTalk360 for a long time, but we have gone a bit deeper and brought things like related activities and a bunch of other features which are much more enhanced. So I thought, I'm not going to spend too much time on the slides. I just, give an intro, very quick intro. If somebody is fairly new to BizTalk360 and if they're seeing for the first time, just to get an understanding of, what are the points we are trying to cover in BizTalk360. At the core of BizTalk360, the concept is basically you have developed something and then you have taken it to production. And from that point onwards, it's a big task to run it smoothly, keep the operations guys happy, and how can you do it in a much more safer way. That's the scope of BizTalk360. So we never deviated from that vision right from day one. It's 6 years, and we have released over 50 releases in the last 6 years. So every 3 months once, there was a consistent release of the product. And we bundled in at least 2 to 3 new features into the product. It's mainly driven by our own experience working with the industry and a lot of our partners and customers. And we have also we got a feedback portal which is very popular, and we get a lot of requests through that portal as well. So the number one goal is the support side, and the security is one of the biggest aspect. So a lot of times, the BizTalk admin console got its own limitations, like in the sense it's designed more for a hardcore BizTalk guy. And when it comes to operations, sometimes people struggle. The security, especially from the security side of things, it's all or nothing, and that's one of the things we address. The second big picture is actually on the monitoring side. People use different techniques for monitoring. So typically they use something like SCOM. We also keep hearing, when we are in some of the sales calls, we do hear things like, we try to use Nagios or SolarWinds, etc. But what typically happens is it's so easy from a very top level to say, if we do cover BizTalk monitoring. But if once you go a bit deeper, then, it just comes down to, okay, we do monitor some server CPUs and disks and event logs and stuff like that. But people coming from a BizTalk background, it's much more than that. And I'll quickly cover some of on the demo, what we do. And analytics is another big area. For most of the team, BizTalk is such a big black box. You really don't know what's going on. unless otherwise you build some custom solutions on top of it, either using BAM or some kind of a custom tracking solutions to get some data out of it. So we wanted to productize it as much as possible, and actually that comes as part of the analytics. So as I said, I don't want to go into the slides. Let me quickly switch over to the product itself. Okay, so this is what BizTalk360 is. To start off with, you can see it's a pretty modern web interface, and it's people coming from the BizTalk admin background side of things can appreciate what level of the user experience you are seeing here. So this dashboard is not a static dashboard. It's a fully customizable dashboard. So you can go and add widgets to this dashboard. So when I said in the beginning, like we're investing to go a bit deeper, so some of these examples are classic ones. For example, we added a lot of useful widgets to the product as well. So the EDI, if you're dealing with a lot of EDI stuff, we brought some lot of EDI related stuff. And if you're working with the ESB toolkit, exception management, those kind of things. So we brought a bunch of ESB related widgets. So it's fairly easy to add and remove whatever you want. So it all adds to the bottom of the widget of the dashboard, and you can go and these are some of the stuff I just added. So we out of the box we provide quite a bit of useful widgets. So things like, for example, when again it's the same story of going deeper. So we brought this widget called BizTalk Server License, because we figured out, one of the topmost article on our blog is our licensing document. How do you license your BizTalk environment? People are not aware how much license you need for your production system. How does they made a big switch in 2013 how you license your BizTalk environment. They moved from CPU to core, and people got a lot of trouble understanding that. So we got a widget which quickly tells you exactly, how many licenses do you need for your BizTalk environment. So there's quite a bit of logic behind the scene to bring it on. So this widget itself, you can easily, you can customize it. You can say, you can move it around, or if you don't want something, you can close it, you can customize it, and we also support multiple sizes and things like that. You can, a lot of our customers got very nice dashboards built for different environments, and you can also have multiple dashboards as well. It's not just one dashboard. You can have multiple of them to cover multiple things. So some people might have, this is the SAP to Oracle integration. As part of that, you want a bunch of items in it. You can do it pretty quickly. The second biggest value proposition what you get from BizTalk360 is actually consolidation of a lot of your tools. Right now, if you look at how you operate your BizTalk environment, so you're looking somewhere around 6 to 8 different tools to run it. So BizTalk Admin Console, of course, is the obvious one. So in addition, you might be using BAM portal, ESB portal, SQL Server Management Studio to do some SQL stuff. If you're using some monitoring tools, you might have like a SCOM interface and things like that. In addition to that, if the event viewer is very important in a BizTalk world, and that's where you go and figure out all the failed, anything goes wrong in BizTalk, your first point of contact will be Admin Console, and the second point will be event viewer. So those kind of, we brought all those things into the product basically. So you can see like the ESB portal, you can see the ESB exception data right in the BizTalk360 console. So it's basically, we rebuilt everything from scratch. It's not like, we resurfaced everything on what's on the standard portal. So it's been built and developed. And it's also improved significantly as well. So we have things like, for example, this is a small knowledge base article here. You can view the, there is somebody has written some kind of a knowledge resolution for that exception. You can maintain this knowledge base completely, and you can attach this knowledge base to multiple places, like some specific events happening in your system, some suspended instances happening continuously. You can attach all those kind of things. So we have ESB portal, and when you go to data access, you can see you can have BAM portal. Even you can access the SQL Server from here. There's a bunch of queries you can store and execute. You can access the entire event viewer across all your BizTalk and SQL servers from single place. You can query your message box. You can query your tracking data. So everything, basically it's a single tool for you to, quickly, visualize and see what's happening in your environment. Okay, there is a graphical flow which shows, okay, there is a error in the system. And you might also notice we have this Azure services. So this is also something we added, because what we are noticing right now is people are moving more and more towards the hybrid model. So you have on-premise BizTalk, you have a lot of things happening, but at the same time, you are started investing some of your new flows in Azure. Maybe you're building some logic apps, so your team is using integration account. So you don't want, again, we are going on the same theme of reducing the number of tools you need to use. So you don't want to use BizTalk admin console on one side and Azure portal on the other side. So you can quickly go and say, what are my logic apps? You can associate subscriptions to a specific environment. So you might have a production subscription or a UAT subscription once you attach it. So you can actually view all those logic apps, and you can see those, the health of those logic apps. So what's running, what is the triggers and actions and tracking and everything all comes into BizTalk360. So this basically, so it's just reducing the number of items. So the other major area is the security is one aspect. So, okay, you can see the product is getting more and more powerful. So of course, you don't want to give this as it is to all of your people. So you wanted to control it. So that's the challenge what you see in BizTalk admin console. So once you give people access to the admin console, they're going to see pretty much everything. So here, you can go to settings, and then we have user access policy. So under user access policy, you can define a policy. For example, if I look at Claire, if I go edit it, so you can say this is a standard AD domain user, and then you can go to different applications, and you can provide the access for applications you wanted to give access to Claire. And it can go very granular. Like you can say, you don't want to have clear access to the message content and context. If you don't want to give access to things like, if you want to give read-only access, that's a very good use case. Because you have a production system and you need developers' help to go and fix some things, but you don't want them to really, have superior rights on your production environment. So in that case, you can give complete read-only access to it. So I think that's the operations and support side of the story. I think you got the idea. So it's basically a 6 years of investment and making it better and better. So if you are using BizTalk, it's a kind of a no-brainer for you to take a look into the value what we can bring from BizTalk360. So the next big thing I wanted to cover is the monitoring, because of course, you invested quite heavily on BizTalk, and it's important to make sure it's running smoothly. So we have this, this concept of alarms. You can quickly, very quickly create an alarm. So this is just our test environment. If you look some of our some of our customers' production environment, they have really, some of them got hundreds of alarms. So every single interface or like a integration scenario you can have, you can actually have a alarm for it. So in this case, for example, I can quickly say this is I want to create a threshold-based alarm, and we got different notification channels. Let's say it's like Oracle to SAP integration, and I can say I'll put my email ID where I want to get notified, and we all got some advanced things like templates and stuff like that, so I'll leave all those things. And you say it's a threshold-based alarm, and I wanted to get notified every, if the violation persists for 1 minute, I wanted to get notified. In some cases, you only wanted to get notified during business hours. You can also restrict it if you want to do that, if you don't want to get alarmed in the middle of the night. So once the alarm is created, it's a very abstract concept. So okay, Oracle to SAP integration, and after that, I can simply go to different artifacts I can monitor. So for example, I can go to applications. So that should list out all the applications, and I can pick up some stuff and say so I wanted to monitor the receive locations, or I don't know whether it got anything here. Okay, this is standard. Okay, so I can say I wanted to monitor this and say, expected state is started. And we also have like a really interesting feature called autocorrect. So a lot of times, for example, if you're using a FTP receive location, it can go down for n number of reasons. Could be network connectivity issue, or there's something wrong on the other side. It's more of a momentary problem rather than a permanent issue. So in that case, you can pick it up and say, like I wanted to enable autocorrect. So in that case, if something goes wrong, it will automatically bring the receive port or a send port back into action. So there are, we got a very good coverage of things what you can cover. A similar way, we cover Azure services as well. So as part of that Oracle to SAP integration, you might have a couple of logic apps or a couple of API apps in part of those solutions. You can actually monitor that as well. When it comes to a BizTalk environment, you can do the standard stuff like host instances, web endpoints, and database queries, and BizTalk health monitor, or MBV, what we used to call it. So this is where I wanted to differentiate. Anybody can claim they cover monitoring for BizTalk, but you can see the depth to which you can go when it comes to monitoring. I just want to highlight this one important thing: host throttling. This is something very, very critical, because a lot of times your BizTalk can go into some kind of a throttling state. Few releases back, we introduced a throttling analyzer, which will give you like a very good visualization of whether your environment is working correctly or under some kind of a throttling condition. So recently, we brought this capability called throttling monitoring. So you can actually go and say, I wanted to set up a alert whenever the system goes into throttling condition. And it's quite advanced in the sense like you can go any throttling, or you can specify I'm interested in rate throttling or a database size throttling and things like that. You can go much more granular, and you can control it. So this in itself is a huge time saver, because typically what happens is your system is under some kind of a throttling condition, and you ask your BizTalk admin guy or somebody in charge of BizTalk to go diagnose the problem. And trust me, it will take a day at least for them to understand whether there is a throttling condition or not. So this is all there. Just a few clicks here and there, and you got complete throttling within few seconds, basically. We got file locations. File, maybe you're watching still, you're using the file-based integration. So you may wanted to keep the growth of that folder, like whether there are too many files accumulating in that folder, you wanted to monitor that, you can do that. And the same can be done for FTP and SFTP locations as well. If something is piling up on that side, you can get notified. So queues is interesting. We cover 3 different types of queues. The standard Windows MSM queue. IBM MQ is very popular. Like a lot of people with HIS and host integration, you got IBM queues involved in your integration. You can monitor things like the depth of the queues and a bunch of other properties. And also, we spend a lot of time on the user experience side, because we wanted to make it seamless. So you can see a lot of those configurations are pre-populated. Basically, what we do is we go through your environment and we figure out whether you have any of the ports configured for your IBM MQ, and then we pick up most of the configuration, and it just a couple of clicks here and there, and you will get that complete monitoring in place. So that's one side of the story, and we also have something called data monitoring. So which is viewing the historical data. So the use case here is, say for example, you got some kind of a SLA, so process like a 20 purchase orders every hour coming from a SAP system. You can quickly create data you need to create an alarm with that data monitoring stuff, and you quickly say you're looking for some messages, and whether you're getting that volume of messages going through the system. If not, you just get notified. So that's on the monitoring side, and probably I'll just spend a minute on analytics. So the analytics is pretty similar. So we provide a lot of analytics data on top of it. So you can have a similar kind of a widget concepts, but here it's more about the runtime metrics, like transmission failures and message performance and those kind of things. You can also have a reporting as well. So you can quickly produce this kind of report very quickly. So this is all coming from your analytics data. And all these things without you writing any code, basically. You just install 360 and leave it running, and you start getting these kind of reports, and you can download it as a PDF. And it's quite a bit of a value what you get out of your, because every one of us, like a BizTalk enterprise is not cheap. You're looking at least $100,000 investment, and you get all these things out of the box for that kind of investment. So messaging patterns, we identify different patterns in your system. So we provide this kind of what are the different patterns of messages that's going through your system. So again, same concept. We explore whatever it's in your database, and we just bring it on, basically. Okay. Okay, I think that would have given you like a very quick intro. I want to stop there from a BizTalk360 perspective. I'm sure like a lot of you might have seen most of the stuff there. Could be a very good 20 minutes recap for you to understand what we have done. For some of you new, like it would have been like a opportunity for see it. If you're interested, we are outside. You please come and talk to us. We can probably do much more deeper demo. Okay, so with this, I would like to switch to Service Bus 360. Service Bus 360, we started the project something like 18 months ago, something like that. So initially, we started off as a concept, similar to what we had done for BizTalk and BizTalk 360. We felt it's a similar need is required for Service Bus, because the messaging from people coming from an integration world, messaging is the key. And if you look at the current scenario now, Service Bus is the messaging platform what you have. You really don't have much option. Like, if you're into messaging, Service Bus is the option for you to look into. So we thought we saw there's a lot of gaps in terms of, from an operations and, like managing it. So the Azure portal is kind of limited in terms of what you can do with the Service Bus. So how many of you are using Service Bus Explorer here? Right. Okay, so Service Bus Explorer is a great tool, and Pablo was trying to address that gap. And of course, Pablo is a full-time employee with Microsoft. I don't even know whether he's still working with Service Bus. I think he moved on, and it's a kind of a open source product. So that's something we wanted to address that gap. It's more than what the Service Bus says. Just give it as a context, as an example, like why we are looking into addressing that gap. So in a similar way, we wanted to provide one platform, operations monitoring and analytics for Service Bus. So now I think today's an important day for us. We are repositioning that product in a different way. I'll go through the slides quickly in terms of how the product initial concept started and where we are heading with that product in the future direction. So you've been hearing a lot of talks for the last day and off from Microsoft, and we are all fully aware of this new buzzword coming, like serverless and everything. You don't need to worry about infrastructure. I don't need to explain this description, but just on a very high level, the serverless, the term basically means you don't need to worry about your infrastructure or servers or things like disks and CPUs and stuff like that. So you only worry about things which are you work on the platforms, and you don't need to worry about the scale. If you get today you're processing 100 messages per minute, but in the future if you wanted to process 5,000 messages per minute, you don't worry about the infrastructure. It will scale automatically. And also you don't do upfront investment. You pay per use. So you might start small, and as you grow and as your solutions get bigger and complex, you pay according to your requirements, basically, right? So these are some of the technologies what comes under this serverless, focused purely on integration background, basically, right? So now we are pretty much familiar with all these concepts now, because people like Dan and John Fancy and Kevin, and they've been talking on each one of those this individual technologies. Like, Jeff spoke about functions, and John on logic apps, and Dan on event grid, and we all understand, the usage of serverless. Most of this, like if you look at how you use these technologies, basically most of this serverless technologies on silos, when you look at it as independent items, it got very less value, right? Because if you want to make sense out of an event grid, you need something on both sides, right? So you need events from, for example, from a storage, and that raises an event, it goes to the event grid, and then you call a webhook or another logic app or something like that. Same for logic apps as well. Okay, the logic app on its own, it's not going to do much. You need to put some connectors, and you need to talk to things on both sides to make any sense out of it. So this is all, as I mentioned, it's not going to add too much value on silos, but when you start putting things together like this, that's when you really realize the power of these technologies together, right? So these are some of the, I just did a quick search on a search engine, and then these are some of the images I got right out of a standard search engine. So these are the type of things what people are building now, right? Okay, you got something coming to event grid, and it spans out into logic app, functions, and webhooks, and things like that. And this is something what people started to call it as serverless apps, right? So this is how it's all looking. So I'm going to ask a question like, how are we going to manage this? What options do we have? So, okay, I'll rephrase it another way. How many of you are confident you can give Azure portal access to your support people? Okay, so that's the problem. That's the USP we wanted to address. Because we run some of our products on Azure, and we are not confident giving access to our own support people. You got fantastic role-based access and everything in Azure portal, but how many of us are willing to, go spend some time on set some permissions and access, and how are you going to do that? If you log into Azure portal now, all you will do is like things hanging all over the place, right? Okay, all resources here and there, and you're never going to get the visibility of this kind of, this is my app. So you're not going to get, that no application visibility. Okay, this is my simple serverless app, but I don't have the visibility how I'm going to manage it. And also, I mentioned that Service Bus Explorer example. Some of the tooling are really, like a premature. Like you really, when you look at real production systems, and you wanted to do something really concrete, the tooling lacks significantly in Azure portal. I can see as a company, as a Microsoft, it's very difficult for them because they need to set their boundaries. Otherwise, when you have, like 100,000 people and 100 different services, when everybody starts spinning their own portals, it becomes completely non-manageable, so they can't do that. In fact, they did it. If you look at the original version a few years ago, they used to have a portal for SQL Server, and they had a portal for BizTalk services, and they killed everything. And they said there's only one portal, Azure portal, and they wanted to bring everything into that portal. And that brings the level of constraint for the product groups as well, because they can only work within the boundaries of that portal, and that brings the tooling limitation. No consolidated monitoring as well. Okay, Azure portal got a good monitoring story. You can do a lot of metrics, but again, it comes back to the same problem of they are siloed, right? Okay, if a single logic apps, if it's failing or doing something, okay, it's important to monitor that, but it makes more sense to understand the context in which that logic app is actually running. So that's the problem we wanted to address, and again, the security as well. So what we have done in the initial days is, as I said, we started this product as a more focused as advanced tooling for Service Bus. But now, based on feedback and our own experience, we are actually going to rebrand this product into Serverless360. Okay, let me quickly go through what it actually means. So first, the foremost is a managing serverless application. So as I mentioned, so what you can do is you can actually start grouping those entities which are relevant to your application. So it could be, in this case, you have an order processing app that got, for example, 2 queues, 2 functions, 2 logic apps, some APIs, all put together as a serverless app. And you can say this is basically your order processing application. And that entities can actually come from different subscriptions, different resource group. As long as you connect your service principals, we can pull all those information, and you can start constructing this serverless applications, basically. And once it's there, you manage it from that point onwards. You start managing it as more like as a single applications. You're not working with independent entities, but you're working at a reasonable application level. So we wanted to also provide deep tooling. So, like complete CRUD operations on all those entities, ability to resubmit, repair, and edit and resubmit messages. There are we identified things like if you have a duplicate detection enabled on a queue, and if you resubmit a message, you need to change the message ID of that message. So those kind of things, if you don't have this functionality, your developer is going to write a console app to do that, right? So that's a problem we wanted to address. And we also have some scheduled activities. Probably you may wanted to purge all those dead letters every day or something like that, right? So those kind of deep tooling is what we wanted to bring into the context of serverless apps. So this is more, right now the deep tooling is what we have for queues and topics, but in the future, we have roadmaps to cover deep tooling for all those serverless apps related entities. And you also can monitor those as a single entity. Okay, I am interested in what happened to my order processing app. I'm not really interested in what happened to this independent function or a logic app or a queue or something like that. So you manage it at an application level. Security and governance, again, so this is addressing the original problem I raised, because right now everybody is a bit skeptical giving access for the Azure portal. So here you give access to a serverless app, and they can only see things which are inside that serverless app. And we also address the standard auditing functions, like if somebody making property changes or somebody resubmitting messages, all those things are all part of the application. So we originally started this Service Bus 360 as a complete SaaS-based application. So we run the whole thing like how Azure is running most of the serverless things. But we hit a bottleneck. Like a lot of our, government customers and healthcare customers, they're not confident to give their connection details to a third-party app like us. So based on the feedback, we now have a full private hosting option. So you can actually take this and host it on your own infrastructure. So you run it in a similar way how you can take BizTalk360 and install it on your own environment where we don't have any access to it. In a similar way, you can run the entire serverless app 360 in your own data center or in your own virtual machines. So I think I'll quickly go through a demo. I want to show it's all real. It's not just PowerPoint. Okay, so this is how the application looks. So you can see here you have 2 choices. Either you can manage individual stacks. So when you want to have some kind of a deep tooling for your queues and topics and things like that, you can go and navigate via this, or you can go via this composite application route. So you can see we have a bunch of applications already configured. This is one of our production environments, couple of production environments. They got some entities. And let's take this example of this order processing application. So you can see this particular app got a bunch of queues, topics, and some logic apps. For some reason, I think they are disabled, and it's not in a healthy state. And that could be part of your monitoring to get it done. So I can go to topics, and then I can say like I can see the subscriptions under this topic. I can also say, like, I wanted to maybe, send some sample messages to this topic. And by the way, it's all controllable. You probably don't need to give send messages option to everybody in the team. So you can actually change the user access policy so they don't get access to this send message capabilities. So here, let me say I'm throwing some 5-6 messages. You send a message, and it's all, get transmitted. So you get a very rich tooling for your day-to-day operations. Okay, my mouse. Okay, so it's there, and I can go to open up and see the one of the topics, and I can see if there's anything like dead letter messages. So there could be for the demo purpose we put some messages in a dead letter. So the network, okay, and then you can basically choose what are the messages, and you probably want to resubmit the message, and you can choose to which queue or which topic you wanted to resubmit that message. Let's say I'm picking up this duplicate message thing. So here this is the original message ID, but you may wanted to change it to something like order/2000/18 or something like that, and you can resubmit it back. So also, maybe you can do multiple, maybe there are really sometimes, hundreds of messages you wanted to resubmit, you can go to resubmit, same concept, but this time, I can't go and type each one of them, say, okay, maybe generate message IDs, unique message IDs, so that you can resubmit it back. So it's all, again, coming from our own experience of, practically what are the things you will see on a day-to-day basis, and that's how we basically build the product. So activities, as I mentioned, there may be a bunch of things. Maybe you wanted to purge the dead letters on a daily basis. So you can, quickly see how it's been configured. You can do some of the activities regularly, like, resubmitting messages, resubmitting and delete, or you can simply delete the messages. You can, schedule it how you want to run it every day or every other day or, every Monday or something like that. And then, you can, once you save it, the system background jobs runs and cleans up everything. So monitoring, we have a really good use cases. Like I don't have only a couple of minutes, so I'll quickly show the important one. So we have this, historical data monitoring stuff. So maybe you may wanted to monitor your ingress rate at which the messages are coming into your system, and there may be some SLAs. So you can easily configure it. If I look at one of those failed ones, you can see there are a lot of conditions I wanted to satisfy in that particular queue or topic. So if it's not matching any of these things, the action failed item is greater than 10, alert somebody. The runs completed is less than 1, you alert somebody. So you get quite a deep tooling basically in terms of monitoring. So in terms of composite apps, you can easily add stuff to the app. All you say is associate resources. So you want in the settings side, you go and associate some of your subscriptions, and we pull all those things, whatever available in those subscriptions, and you pick and choose these are the things which comes as part of my serverless app, and then you can manage it as a single entity. We have a Service Bus 360 team here. So Arun, who is sitting in the front, is in charge of the Service Bus team. So if you wanted to get more info, please feel free to come and talk to us. Thank you very much.